Good morning. Good morning, welcome. Our technician, Jay, has just informed me that we're live. So I just wanted to say welcome to everybody, and if we can just find our seats. And Jay is our technician in the back, so he's advised if we're streaming on YouTube, and then we're going to also use our Zoom capabilities today. So if we have any technical glitches, Jay will just raise his hand and we'll pause and we'll get him back online. First of all, welcome. My name is David Houle. I'm a member here at Davidson College Presbyterian Church, and I'm so excited to welcome everybody today because today's discussion is really the culmination of some hard work from a leadership team here at the college. What I wanted to do is to recognize our COVID environment, and Cambria and Penny have graciously got the white linen tablecloths to help with the COVID, but just be mindful. And she wanted me to remind you that any of the sipping and partaking of beverage that we do outside of this hall. So just to be super cautious relative to the COVID. I want to welcome our online participants. When the leadership team was putting this program together, we were anticipating we might get 15 or 20 individuals. And it's my understanding that with the people here today in person, plus the people online, we're approaching 48 individuals that have participated in this. So I think that's a great round of applause for the program. What I wanted to do is each of you has been given a copy of the book that we're using today to anchor the discussion of mindfulness and our spirituality. It's by Amy Oden, and we've got a copy for the individuals here. And George Raftelis is going to begin the conversation related to spirituality and mindfulness with some of the topics that are part of this book. The good news is that starting tomorrow, the Faith Formation has a 4-week Sunday school program where we're using this book to go deeper into mindfulness and spirituality and Christianity. So exciting times. And I was just told that we have 24 participants signed up for tomorrow's discussion. And that will be a 4-week program. So there's still availability. That's both in person and online. So feel comfortable. If today inspires you to be part of that Sunday school group, please feel free to sign up. Cambry.
It's at the Student Center in the main building. And if you want to register, please just speak to me and I'll add you to the list.
All right, thank you. The other thing that I wanted to just share is a couple of, we've got a lot of information that we want to try to share today, so I'm going to try to be sensitive to just manning the time for our discussions and our presentations. But the thing that I just wanted to show you is that this topic of mindfulness is really becoming much more common and much more in vogue. I've got a couple references that I've got, and I'll put them to the side, and I just invite you to take a look at them. This was a Time magazine that was published in 2017, and it talks about mindfulness. And this was really one of the beginning efforts by a publication house to really start to compile the different dimensions of mindfulness. So I just invite you to take a look at this and kind of browse through it and say, wow, there's a pretty comprehensive inventory of what is going on. And then more recently, the Yoga Journal has actually published a full version of mindfulness as well. So I think that there's a lot of information that's available, beyond this workshop to really help inspire and to guide those individuals that are interested in kind of taking their mindfulness practice to the next level. The exciting part about this is that hopefully this workshop, when we were planning the workshop, we were cautious about the timing of trying to get this workshop so early in the first year. But the Spirit moved us. There were a number of people that at the same time said, we really think there's an opportunity for mindfulness here at DCPC. And I'm going to just say thank you to some of those folks in just a minute. But the hopeful part about this is that this is just the beginning of a conversation going forward in 2022 about mindfulness, both from a physical, mental, and a spiritual perspective. So hopefully this is just the catalyst of a conversation here at DCPC for mindfulness going forward. We're going to talk about the physical aspects, the mental, and the spiritual. Penny Lambert has done a great job of pulling together some of the reference material that's in your packet. So if you look in there, there's some really great references and some guides to mindfulness. So those are things that you have access to and could use those beyond the workshop. the Spirit really moved us, and we were talking about the numbers, and then all of a sudden the numbers got bigger, and we got calls as of last night, can I come? So I think that the Spirit here at DCPC is really moving us. But what I want to do is just take a moment to introduce the folks that are part of the leadership team, and for me to personally say thank you for all their help in bringing this together. So first of all, I'd like to, and Cambria, please stay up. Cambria Nielsen. Cambria is part of the Mental Health Matters program, and she's been instrumental in connecting the dots and being passionate about this workshop and providing a lot of the logistical support. And then Penny Lambert. Thank you, Penny. And Penny is part of the Stevens Ministry. She's also part of the Mental Health Matters and the Fellowship Committee, and she's been instrumental. She's been a huge cheerleader of making sure we stay on point and really bringing this program together in a timely fashion. Julia Nardelia has been instrumental in helping George and myself with some of the graphic presentations. And then my partner in crime, George Raftelis, and what I've come to understand is that when you work out, you go to yoga or something like that, oftentimes you need a buddy or a partner, and George has been my partner in mindfulness. So George and I last year put together a 5-week meditation and mindfulness program for the Friday men's group. So we've become much closer in our mindfulness, and George is an instrumental part of this development, and George has got some great topics to talk about today. And then most importantly, or equally important, is we've got two individuals, Dr. Assad Monzer and Frank Gantz. Assad? And then Frank Gantz. And we've worked with this leadership group to really put this program together. So we hope it's a really nice blend of a spiritual component, the physical aspects of mindfulness, and then also the mental. And really, this is really an opportunity for you to see. We were hopeful that as Presbyterians, we've got to be a little bit based in the science and the facts. So hopefully, some of the information that we present today really resonates and makes sense from both the medical and from a mental health perspective. Jay's our technical support in the back, so thanks, Jay, for coming in on Saturday. And then last, I just want to thank Peter Henry, because George and I and Penny and Cambria had gone to Peter and asked him about the possibility of sponsoring and endorsing this mindfulness workshop. And Peter was right there. He said, that the timing is right. I'm fully supportive. So even though Peter's not here today. And then also Robert Alexander. So I just want to say thank you to Peter and to Robert for just being such advocates of this topic as we go through 2021 into 2022. What I want to do is just take a quick review of today's agenda. We're scheduled for 3 hours. I'm going to try to keep us on task, on time as much as possible. But we're going to open with a mindfulness survey, and we've got the agenda behind me. A mindfulness survey, we wanted to go around the room and get some understanding of as to people's experience and why they're here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a brief survey of 3 questions. The first one is, why are you here? 2, what is your experience with meditation and mindfulness? And then the third, which you may or may not be able to answer straight away, but hopefully later in the program, is to say, what would you as an individual or a couple like to see DCPC do in the future from a programming perspective to continue this topic in support of mindfulness here at the church? Okay, so that's the third question. So we'll just take a couple minutes and have a show of hands and take some notes here just to kind of find out what we've got from a perspective in the audience. And then George, we're going to turn the discussion over to George, and George is going to facilitate a discussion about the significance of mindfulness and Christian mindfulness. And the elements of that are taken from Amy Oden's book, so George will bring us there. And then this is a workshop, so we want to make it practical. So the first thing that we've got is it's a famous Raisin Exercise, and Dr. Frank Gantz is going to facilitate that exercise. We've got raisins that are distributed at all the tables. And some of us have experienced this exercise, and hopefully this will be new for some. But it's really the kind of a warm-up exercise for mindfulness because we are going to do a couple of guided meditations through the rest of the program today. And then we'll transition to Assad, and he'll talk about the physiology of stress relaxation response, and this is the physical part of mindfulness. And then we'll take a break, and we want to be sensitive, probably 10 or 15 minutes as we go. And then we'll come back with Dr. Gantz's presentation on mindfulness and mental health. Starting with the spiritual part, working to the physical, and then the mental. And then the next part is we want to be able to break into some small groups and have discussions, and really a little bit of fellowship around mindfulness. We're going to bring you back and take notes from those discussions, and then we're going to have a general broader discussion with a broader group, and then really try to figure out what some of those next steps here at the church are. And then we're going to try to be on time and to get you out at noon. We might be running a little bit over, but the last thing we want to share is just a guided meditation with one of my favorite scripture verses, which is the 23rd Psalm. So that kind of rounds out our agenda for today. Let me pause and see if there's any opening thoughts, questions, or comments from their leadership. We good?
For people at home, they may want to get a raisin or a small piece of food to do the Raisin Exercise. Just occurred to me.
Okay.
They were given raisins.
Yep. The people online were given raisins. So thanks, Kimberly, for being vigilant about. Excellent.
We are short on books, so if you happen to have an extra copy of the book, would you please hold it up at the air? Thank you.
So I'm going to just before I turn it over to George, I want to just take a moment to kind of share a personal mindfulness story. I've got a friend of mine who recently had bought an Apple Watch, and I was wearing my old watch for a number of years, and he said, "David, you really should get an Apple Watch." So for Christmas, I received an Apple Watch, and it's got all of those, wellness and mindfulness functions. It keeps track of when you should stand up and breathe and things like that. So it's just been a wonderful addition to my life, and using that functionality. But then I started to explore some of the other things that the Apple Watch in combination with some apps can do. And I'm going to get a little bit personal, so hopefully this resonates with some folks. So if I'm really tired or I have some late night dinner, when I go to bed I tend to snore a little bit. So for the women in the group, I just want to raise of hands of those folks that have spouses that snore a little bit, right? Okay. So there's an app, right? There's an app, and this is not a public service announcement for the snoring app, but there's an app that I have on my phone that's called Snore Lab. And what it does is it actually records your snoring. And my wife has told me for years that you snore terribly, and I didn't have any proof. Well, I installed this app, and now I've got this recording, and I can actually track, and I can see what time I was snoring. And it's like, yep, we got some problems here. So you got to, lose a little bit of weight and just, get to bed earlier and things like that. So I'm looking at this, and then my wife had a presentation with a client one morning, the next day, and we're sleeping, and I have a device I put in my mouth to help relieve some of the snoring, and she'll poke me, and she said, did your mouthpiece fall out? And I said, yeah, sorry. So I go back to sleep, and she's wrestling. So finally she wakes me up, and this is the mindfulness about, a relationship and romance. She said to me, she says, you got to do something. I got this presentation tomorrow. I said, well, what do you want to do? And she turns to me in a dead serious voice. She says, well, if you want to really be mindful about this, is you should sleep on the couch. So I did. And she got a better sleep and she had a successful presentation. But I think that being mindful of life in general is just one part of the things that we want to share today. So welcome. And with that, I'll turn it over to George. Sorry. One very important thing. I just wanted to ask Robert to open us with a prayer today. Thank you, Robert, for reminding me. There you go.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Some have suggested that our very first breath and our very last breath of life is a reminder of God's Spirit with us and a reminder of who God is as we speak the name of Yahweh. As we enter into a time of prayer, I invite you to begin with 3 breaths in and out, and we begin this time to focus and be mindful of why we are here today. Let us pray. Holy God, in the stillness of this moment, in the beauty of this day, may we be aware of your presence, aware of one another, and aware of the gift of this time together today. Help us to be attentive to your Spirit and to be open to how you would lead this time, this community. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Greetings, everybody. Can you hear me in the back? Or do I need to? Okay. Can you? Okay, good. That makes it a little easier than having to use the mic.
People online will be able to hear you.
People online will not be able to. Okay. Well, we'll just add to the process here. Thank you, Robert. Hopefully, if I get too loud, just do like this, or maybe better like this to let me know that I've gotten too loud. And I guess, Jay, you in the back will monitor the volumes too. But as I understand, protocol is as long as I stay more than 6 feet away, I can take my mask off and look at everybody. But it's great to see such a wonderful participation. I'm enjoying seeing your smiling eyes and foreheads and eyebrows. So welcome to everybody. I just want to echo what David had shared earlier. This has been quite a journey we've been on, and it's been very exciting to work with the team that we've had to participate in this process. And it's certainly our hope that you will feel a new energy, a new excitement, more connectivity with this whole concept of mindfulness when we finish. So the objectives really of today for me is, in my presentation, is to first of all provide a little bit of a foundation of the rest of the workshop, to give you, to throw out some concepts that will hopefully resonate with you. We want to give you some more insights into the concept of mindfulness. It is a word that you've heard a lot, I'm sure, but you know, a lot of people have different ways of understanding what mindfulness is. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be very straightforward in terms of what we're trying to achieve through mindfulness. It can be more difficult to make it a process in our lives. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today will be just that. How do we take the concept of mindfulness and make it real to us and make it a real asset for us? Just a couple of background thoughts. I think this is said pretty well, that mindfulness is consciously attending to the present moment, trying to seek wisdom, clarity, and guidance in our lives, and to initiate actions that will align us with our values. And when I'm talking about values, I'm talking about attributes that we want to emulate in our lives. And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail in a second. What we found are the 2 key ways that you achieve mindfulness is through prayer and meditation. Now, if you go to our friends in the East, you know, meditation is a huge way that folks connect with their consciousness without a specific regard necessarily to religion. When we go to prayer, we in our Christian tradition, we try to embrace scripture, scriptural messages as a part of the process and connect with our God and Jesus. So Christian mindfulness is taking it one step further for our tradition and the way our lives have evolved. We'll get into that in more detail. And like I said earlier, mindfulness can be very complicated. It doesn't have to be. It can be very easy, but it requires effort. It requires discipline. It requires commitment to be willing to use mindfulness and stay with it to help us. And as I said earlier, when we think about Christian mindfulness, bracketing in, we're talking about a way to enhance our personal relationship with God, with Jesus, with the scriptures we've read, and our Christian beliefs. So keep that in mind. And really, I know that that's what we're trying to do here at our church, is to focus on Christian mindfulness. Okay, now this is my fun slide. So if you don't remember anything, take a snapshot of this in your mind. And what I've tried to do here is in a diagram with a few components to express what we are calling mindfulness. And I'm going to take us through each one of the components. Now, the laser pointer's not working exactly like we wanted, so I'm going to improvise a little bit, but I'm going to take us through the mindfulness process with the schematic. And the first thing we want to start off with is right in the top right, our goal. What is our goal in mindfulness? It's to try to attain God's abundant life. And what do we mean by that? We mean, and we'll go into this in a little bit more detail in a second, but we're talking about 5 attributes of God's abundant life, which is what we really want to try to attain. We're talking about being free. We're talking about being real. We're talking about being rooted, grateful, as well as open-hearted. And I know those are just words, so we'll jump into those in just a second. So, so taking us back to the schematic. Okay, let's do this. Okay, again, let's build up what we mean by this goal of God's abundant life. First of all, a part of God's abundant life is being free. And what does free mean? Being relaxed, being open, thinking out of the box, not being tied to reactivity. Don't let the triggers of fear and anxiety force us to be somebody that we don't want to be. That's what we mean by free here. We move from free to real, just like it sounds. Real means being authentic, being not fake, being ourselves, letting our true selves come out, letting ourselves be vulnerable. It's taking off the mask, not in here, but taking off the mask of society and letting people know who we are, saying what we mean. That's what real means. Rooted, being centering ourselves, sort of getting rid of the distractions, prioritizing what is important in our life and acting on those important things, not to dwell with the minutia, but focus on things that are central to who we want to be and what we're all about. Grateful, fairly straightforward. We were talking about being grateful for what we have, for the blessings we've been given. We want to let go of having to have more and more, and we have to be perfect. We want to be grateful for we want to celebrate what we have and not be looking for more pleasure, more things in our lives. And I know that's easier said than done, but that's what grateful is being simple. And it can be as simple as our breath, enjoying our breath, being grateful for that. And you'll see in a little bit that breathing is a key part of mindfulness. And finally, open-hearted. We want to be open-hearted, and that simply means connected to others, doing to others as we want them to do to us. It's being communal, relating our mindfulness to others out there. So again, very important is God's abundant life. Now you'll notice there are 3 little bubbles on top of God's abundant life. And largely today, that's what we're going to be focusing in on. Assad's going to take us down the physical path, and he's going to be talking about how mindfulness can help us with some of our physical issues we're dealing with. You know, things like stress. Frank is going to take us down the emotional and mental path of how we can use mindfulness to address some of those kinds of issues. So that's where we're headed. Very, very important box. Okay. How do we do this? Again, I'm moving from the goal to the tool. So let's talk about the tool. The tool is mindfulness. And as we mentioned before, mindfulness can be a way to achieve mindfulness is through prayer and meditation. And as you notice at the bottom of the box, we put scripture. And for us in our Christian tradition, look at scripture as one of the ways that we try to find mindfulness. Now notice all the little boxes around the house we have there, around the tool. We've got these factors to think about. We want to think about our posture. Are we sitting? Are we standing? Are we laying? And as we get into this mindfulness process, we're going to be unique. Your mindfulness process will be different. Joe's might be different from Glennette's. Or Eva's may be different than Carol's. But these are the factors that we will be thinking about. Posture, what is most comfortable, we need to empty our minds, obviously, become a blank sheet so we can listen as one of the items, so that we can hear God speaking to us. We certainly think that discipline is an important part of it, being committed and disciplined to a process. The five senses sometimes plays a role. Frank is going to walk us through a visual and I guess auditory process in his meditation on the raisin. So that's a technique. It might be we listen to sounds. It might be that we feel textures as a part of our unique process of achieving mindfulness. We have to be patient. It's not something we rush into. I was going to humorously say at the beginning of my talk that normally I say let's fasten our seatbelt and grab hold of our ripcord as we move forward. What I would say here is we unfasten our seatbelt and we let go of our ripcord and relax and be patient. We need to listen to ourselves, listen to God's voice, sometimes listen to the community voice. We want to share ourselves. We want to become vulnerable. We want to become honest. And we need to look, as I have as a last bullet, a venue, the place that is most comfortable and typically is somewhere you may want to go back to time after time. Okay, back to the schematic again. We've identified the goal. We've talked about the tool. Now, what does the tool do? Where do we connect with what do we use the tool for? We connect with God, we connect with ourselves, and in some cases, a community dynamic. And that connection is going to speak to us if the process works like we would hope. And by that connection, we then, guess what? And I love Julie's little picture of the person here, seeking wisdom and clarity and guidance in our lives. That's what this connectivity hopefully will do, is give us that wisdom we need, give us that guidance, give us that clarity. From there, we go to defining our values and enhancing our values. As I mentioned earlier, we're talking about attributes that we want to try to emulate. As you look at the list up there, there's one person that we can remember that reflects those attributes that we would like to emulate, and that's Jesus. Things like humility, compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, perspective, and the list can go on and on. But by achieving these values, it helps us to be able to move into action. Because it's one thing to have sort of developed these values and enhance these values, but without taking action, we'll never take it to the next step. And what we have to be careful about is we learn from our action too. And this next part of the slide talks about the feedback we get from our actions. We examine it, it sends us a message, And it takes us back to the whole mindfulness process again, where it can be dynamic. We never graduate from mindfulness. We just continue this process in the big scheme of things, and again, it brings us back to our start. So that is the process that we think of as mindfulness, the mindfulness process. And what I'm going to do now is just point out, as we go to the next part of our workshop, is to talk about the 3 dimensions of mindfulness, which is what the rest of our workshop will be on: the physical, the mental, and continuing with the emotional. And with that, David, I'll hand it back to you.
All righty, thank you, George. Any opening thoughts, questions to us trying to simplify this concept of mindfulness? Okay, are you ready? First exercise. I want to welcome Frank Gantz. Frank, come on up. What we're going to do is, this is our warm-up exercise for mindfulness, and Frank is going to guide us through a meditation with the raisins. So everybody's got raisins on their table. So Frank,
Can you hear me through this? Yeah, it sounds like it. So if everyone would please open up your boxes and take out a raisin, do so at home as well. And while you're doing that, I'll tell you a brief story. There were 2 monks along a riverbank, and they were drinking water out of the river. And a traveler came by, a young man, and he stops and he says, is the water cold and good? And the monks don't say anything. One of them bends over, takes a cup out of his bag and scoops some water up and smiles and hands it to him. So beyond a nice, kind gesture, this is a part of mindfulness. I can't tell you if something is good. Only you know if something is good for you. Takes some direct experience. So we're going to be doing some direct experience today. And I am going to take this off because it's a little hard to talk with it on. So I'd like you to take your raisins and just look at your raisins. Look at your raisin like you've never seen a raisin in your life. And you may notice thoughts passing through your head, but just let them go. Just look at your raisin. Notice the shape. The ridges. Notice where it's dented and where it's plump. And if you have any stray thoughts showing up, like, why are we doing this? Or just let those things go and look at your raisin. Notice any color variation. Now you've been using your eyes. I want you to bring in to your consciousness the touch. What does the raisin feel like? Really notice that. What happens when you squeeze it? Is it sticky? Now in a moment, I'm going to ask you, for the persons here, to just gently lift your mask and then bite your raisin in half. At home, just bite your raisin in half. And when you do this, just let the half fall into the mouth. Don't chew it, just let it fall in. Go ahead, lift your mask briefly, bite your raisin in half, let it fall in, put your mask back. And just notice what happens in the mouth. Notice how the saliva just shows up. You don't have to think or do anything. Notice the taste. And again, if non-raisin thoughts come into your mind, just let them go. Pay attention to the raisin. You can begin to slowly chew now. Just notice how the raisin resists as you start to bite down on it. Notice how the tongue knows how to position the raisin so you can chew some more. And in a moment, when you swallow, I want you to pay attention and see how far down you can trace the raisin going inside. So go ahead, chew and then swallow. See how deeply you can notice and trace that raisin. And now notice what's left over in the mouth. Still some taste. Some bits of raisin, perhaps. Go ahead and eat the other half of that raisin now. Again, noticing how it resists the taste. And again, when you swallow, notice and trace it down your esophagus. Notice any aftertaste in the mouth or any bits that are left over, how the tongue can find them. Very natural, nothing for you to cogitate about or to do, just experiencing. You might check your fingers and see if there's any stickiness left from the raisin. There may be some aroma of raisin left in your nose or taste. And so now I invite you to just pay attention to how you're feeling after having done this for 7 minutes, 8 minutes to eat one raisin. Notice how you're feeling now compared to when you began. And how many people feel more relaxed, content, positive? Show of hands, please. Right. Did I ever say relax? So this is part of the power of mindfulness, coming into the present moment and letting go. So mindfulness is like a muscle that you exercise to let go of thoughts and attentions that are not serving you, not serving your values, as George and David have pointed out, not moving you in the direction that is healthy for you. Just letting go of stuff and paying attention to what is, what you have here and now. That's the experience of mindfulness. And I hope you found that illuminating and rewarding. Yes, sir. The question was, can we use wine instead of raisins? And I think a lot of, I don't know the fancy word for wine drinkers, a lot would say, yes, you can. But you can really use this approach with anything, eating. I like to use eating in the beginning when I'm teaching mindfulness to my clients, because you're using all of your senses, the heat, the taste. We didn't do smell today because of the COVID issues and taking the mask off, but just dropping out of thought, paying attention to what's right here now with you. So, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. We missed a small section of this morning's discussion, and it's just really more of a discovery. So before we went to Frank's Raisin Exercise, what we wanted to do was just take a little bit of a survey from the audience as to why you're here at the workshop. So let me see if we can start with some folks that, Mr. David, why are you here? Curiosity, okay. Others that are curious? Okay. Fred?
Curiosity, chance to expand my thinking.
Okay, expand your thinking. Others? Joe?
You said you initiated our Friday group on this topic a couple of months ago, so now this is, from my experience, taking it another step further.
Okay. Gotcha. Others? Back here? Why are we here? Hopefully part of it is because the Spirit moved you. Linda?
My daughter is very much into mindfulness, and she has a very stressful job, and I think it's been tremendous how it's helped her.
Okay,
And I've seen the results.
got it. So stress reduction, maybe? Understanding what other people are talking about, understanding out what your Apple Watch means when it says to be mindful, right? So let me just ask a question about experience. I've been meditating since I was in my late 20s, so that's about 10 years. Give or take. But general experience, I mean, we've had some discussions in our men's group. retreats, formal meditation programs?
Oh, little, I use, now I don't even remember, but there are two main meditation apps, and I have one of them, right?
Okay.
So some with that, and then the bit that I've been exposed to mindfulness that found it just amazing and really wanted more.
Ruth?
No, that's Frank's wife. I frequently reminded to use it.
Reminded to use right. Okay, gotcha. Well, and I think, and this is one of the things that came up in the men's group, is that there are apps that are available, Mindspace, that are really good tools that help us commit to and just to, to develop the discipline. But I think that one of the things that I would say is that mindfulness and meditation, for me, has been life-changing. And hopefully this is just the beginning of a conversation where you start to discover and embrace and to use some of the tools that it really can, in fact, change your life. So then from a programming perspective, we've got Sunday school class coming up. We've done some work with the men's group. We've got this workshop. So any thoughts or sense about what we would want to do at DCPC going forward? And I'm waiting for somebody to say a yoga class, right? Right. Thoughts?
Well, maybe, perhaps in our individual groups or teams or committees, we could take some aspects of that to our meetings and so on.
Okay. So the response was taking some of this to our committees or to the small groups that we participate and just bringing that mindfulness concept to be more universally, accepted, discussed. I think that's a great opportunity. And to be honest with you, we're starting to see that now with the fellowship committee, with the Mental Health Matters Committee, with the Stevens Ministry. And Frank had presented to the mental health group, or the Stevens Ministry, this concept of mindfulness. So that's what we invite everybody to do, is think about where those opportunities where mindfulness can continue to grow here at DCB. I've got this young lady, I think her name is Carol, my wife. Yeah, let me just repeat what Carol said. She believes that there's an opportunity to bring mindfulness and some of the tools to our youth. And we've got 3 teenagers, so we try to actually embrace that. So that's something I want everybody to think about is, for those of you who got children or grandchildren, where would we, share this gift of mindfulness and meditation with our youth to help them manage the stresses that they've got, through their teenage years. Yeah. Thanks, Carol.
You mentioned yoga. Fellowship hosted 2 yoga sessions last year because when Claire was here, she had just gotten certified as a yoga
Yeah.
instructor. And we had about 25 people. It was all on Zoom.
Yep.
But we had about 25 people regularly attending.
Wow.
And you could take them and then rewatch. They were on YouTube.
Okay, gotcha.
Take them, but you could go back to YouTube and rewatch.
And we watch them. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. We got that, Cambria? Certified yoga instructor? Can you stand up, Lee? Come on, stand up. Because the other thing that we want to do with this workshop is to have these types of conversations, but then also is just to extend the network and the family of people that are committed to some part of it. So I don't want to volunteer Lee in advance of anything, but so first of all, thanks for being here. Thanks for being a yoga instructor.
I will add that Lee, and I'm not volunteering her,
Okay.
but she is a Kripalu certified yoga teacher.
Kripalu.
That's
That's right.
particular type of yoga that is
And
much more intellectual and spiritual and so on.
exactly, and it's a small world because Lee went to a yoga program in Western Massachusetts in the Berkshires. It's in Lenox, Massachusetts, and the reason why I know it is because I grew up in Pittsfield, which is the next town to, and the Kripalu Center was this mecca, right, for yoga and meditation. So when Mike was telling me that Lee was going to the Berkshires, I said I know exactly what she's talking about. So that's a great opportunity. And I think there's other people within the congregation that teach, different aspects of yoga and meditation. So hopefully part of the conversation today is just to open up the discussion. Yeah, yeah. So some great discussions, some great ideas, and what we want to do is we want to take some of those, we want to have the conversations in our small groups, take some additional thoughts and insights from the small groups, and then as a follow-up to this workshop is for us to compile some of those opportunities, and then the next thing we'll be looking for is who are the other people that want to, develop a ministry and have a passion for meditation, mindfulness, yoga, and really help share those gifts with our folks here at DCPC. So what I want to do is I want to introduce Dr. Asad Monzer, and he's already presented here at DCPC, and Frank is going to anchor this combination of mindfulness to physiology. When I looked at this presentation, I'm a scientist, so when I looked at this presentation, and Frank will tell you a little bit about his transition and his career, but it starts to make more sense. And what you're seeing is that mindfulness and meditation is in the medical journals. It's becoming mainstream. There's empirical studies that are being done. So I think we're really at a tipping point in our society. You've got people putting technology and mindfulness in your wristwatch. So it's a pleasure to welcome Asad.
Thank you, David. Thank you, George, for inviting me to talk here. And you may be, can I have the remote? You may be wondering, what does a urologist have to do with mindfulness and meditation? So I'm going to tell you why. So I practiced as a urologist for 30 years, and I had a great practice. But unfortunately, I was under so much stress that I experienced burnout. So when I experienced burnout, I knew that there was something I need to do. So at the time, the first time I experienced burnout, I thought it's a midlife crisis. I didn't know what burnout was, like 20 years ago. So I got a degree in psychology, and I learned a lot about healing, about meditation. And meditation in the medical profession was not very well accepted at the time, like a woo-woo thing, because we didn't have any scientific evidence that it works. There was some research, but physicians are very skeptical. After I quit my practice for a couple of years and took a sabbatical, and then came back and started working again. A few years later, I just experienced burnout again, and I lost the passion of what I'm doing. And I knew there was something more than just seeing patients and treating them on the physical level. I know that we need to address other aspects of our being, like physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. So there was much more to us than just the body. So I got certified as a life coach and a mindfulness teacher, and I quit my practice 3 years ago completely. The transition was a little bit confusing, to go from a full-time urologist to a coach, and usually with urology, and when you're a physician, we need to tell people what to do. As a coach, we need to listen more. So that was a major difference, and I learned a lot from listening. So what is stress? Actually, I want to ask you, what do you think stress is? If anybody can say something or tell what do you think stress is?
Being overloaded, like that little guy here.
Overloaded, yeah, that's one thing which may cause stress. That's true. What else? Okay. So it's like a teapot which is boiling, and then there is a lot of pressure inside and then it needs to get out. Yeah, it is one aspect of stress. Anybody else? Yes. Fear? Fear. Yes. When we're afraid to do something, okay, or we're stressing ourselves out. So there are external factors that can cause us stress, and there are internal factors from inside of us that sometimes can cause us stress. You know, the way we worry about the future or we ruminate about the past. That's all stress. So the stress is a perceived physical or psychological threat. Sometimes it's not real, but we experience it as real. You know, if somebody tells me, you know, you're stupid, okay, and in my mind, you know, I start, you know, worrying, why are they saying I'm stupid? Or I start reacting. So all that is a stress. That, you know, and we don't realize it until it starts accumulating and accumulating until the pressure builds up. So we need to realize how to deal with stress and respond instead of reacting. And that's why mindfulness is so important. Because the first thing I tell people to do when they experience stress is to stop, take a deep breath, and then assess the situation. Okay, before you answer or you react, assess the situation and decide how you want to deal with the situation. Instead of reacting, just responding. Okay, maybe you're saying I'm stupid, that's your opinion, but I know who I am. Instead of saying, you know, you're stupid, I'm not stupid, you know, and getting all stressed out about it. So we need to learn how to respond instead of reacting. So that's the first key of mindfulness. About stress, do you think there is positive stress? And give me examples of positive stress.
I think athletes, when they do really well.
When?
Athletes.
Athletes, yes, exactly. Exactly. When you, a gymnast, when you're in an Olympic, there is competition. Athletes, you know, elicit that fight or flight response because they're getting ready, they're excited, and their adrenaline is pumping. So yes, there is positive stress. If you're preparing deadlines, if you have a project or a goal you want to achieve, and some people wait for the last minute, and this last minute, you know, they start, you know, getting excited, maybe sometimes anxious about it, and it increases their epinephrine, adrenaline, dopamine, you know, and gives you that sensation of control or satisfaction. So there is positive stress as long as it is short-lived. So there is positive stress. The problem with stress is when it becomes chronic, when it becomes repetitive, and it doesn't cause you anymore that excitement or that push or willingness to do more or do better. So negative stress results in pain and anxiety, like we said, when it becomes chronic. And so stress occurs when you have more than you can handle, you know, overload. When you can't control the outcome, sometimes, you know, natural disasters, loss of a loved one. And when you lose the passion, sometimes when you lose passion in your work, and that's one of the symptoms of burnout. You know, you're overwhelmed, you experience physical and exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, and you lose the passion in your work. That's by itself is a stress. You know, life without purpose is worse than death. You know, so how does stress happen? You know, we have in our brain, the center of our brain is our emotional brain, and sometimes it's not under our voluntary control, because when we get upset or angry, it just happens. We don't decide to get upset or angry. So when we have a stressful situation, or let's say you're driving and a child jumps in front of the car, automatically you press on the brake. You're afraid. You have that fight or flight response, and that's another positive way that stress can help you in those responses. But you don't think, there is a child coming, I need to stop the brake. You automatically push on the brake. And that's sometimes what we call amygdala hijack. You see here the amygdala in the center, in the bottom of the thing, is that the center of stress, center of anxiety. So when the amygdala gets triggered, what happens in our body? It triggers also the hypothalamus. The stress that's coming from the outside triggers our hypothalamus, which is the center of, the hypothalamus is a thermostat of our body. It balances our body. It gives us, what to do when we are unbalanced. So it is important to just briefly to know what's going to happen when we're under stress. So the cerebral cortex perceives the stress. Sometimes we don't have time to think about it. Sometimes we do. The emotional response happens quickly, and then the hypothalamus triggers the fight or flight response. So when we get the fight or flight response, this means that our autonomic nervous system gets activated. So in our body, we have the regular nervous system, if I want to move my hand, my brain is going to tell me, move your hand. But when I want to breathe, or when my heart is beating, I don't tell my heart to beat. And I don't tell myself, my lungs to breathe. It automatically happens. That's the autonomous nervous system. And that's where the fight or flight response happen, most of the time without us controlling it or being deciding, what we're going to do. Sometimes it just happens. So the neurotransmitters, which are the messengers, of our thoughts and emotions. Our emotions are chemical reactions in our brain. So we have some hormones and neurotransmitters that are secreted in our brain, which cause the stimulation of different organs in our brain. So they're called the psychosomatic communication network. I didn't plan this. And they are neuropeptide, they're protein, small chains of protein in our brain. So there is central activation and there is peripheral activation where we're under stress. The central activations give us more alertness, vigilance, focused attention, and it's all due by the production of those neurotransmitters. Epinephrine, which is adrenaline. When you say people have adrenaline rush, when you get excited and you have a stressful situation, you get an adrenaline rush. Sometimes it gives you the sense of power. It becomes like addictive sometimes. And people who get angry and upset, they have that tendency. They get more and more upset because they enjoy it, and they become more angry. So it's very important to stop the cycle and learn how to control our temper, how to respond instead of keep on reacting and reacting. So it's important to become aware of our response and our reaction. Self-awareness is very important in mindfulness. So So adrenaline, what happens when we have a lot of adrenaline in our body? I should have asked you this question before putting this slide. Adrenaline constricts our arteries. So when it constricts our arteries, it increases our blood pressure. It makes our heart beat faster. We start breathing faster. It's a survival response. In the past, our ancestors, they had to elicit the fight or flight response if there is a big animal attacking them, or if they need food for their family and they have to go for a kill. So the fight or flight response is a protective mechanism and is a survival mechanism. So that's one advantage. But we need to be very careful, because when the chronic stress becomes repetitive, then it may cause a lot of physical problem and health problem, and we're going to see in a minute what it is. Dopamine also regulates attention. So because when you're ready to fight, you have to be focused, you have to be clear what you want, how you want to act. You have, if you need to attack that animal who is attacking you. At the same time, endorphins are excreted in our blood. And endorphins are your endogenous morphine. It's a morphine that we have in our body. So you can make yourself happy and get pleasure just from secreting your endorphins. That's why mindfulness is important, because sometimes it secretes those, it helps secrete those dopamine and sometimes endorphins if it's a short-term stimulation. Let's say how do endorphins work and why do they really work? Let's say you're involved in a fight, or you're involved in you're playing a game, and you get hurt. You don't even feel it. After you finish, you realize that, oh, I have a laceration here. How did I get it? I mean, it happened to me several times. Because those endorphins, when you're involved, when you're anxious, when you're active, those endorphins get secreted. You don't even feel the pain. It may also give you a sensation of control and joy. One of the other hormones which is not very good, in stress, adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline, as I said, causes the high blood pressure, heart attacks, problems, anxiety, depression. The cortisol can inhibit our immune system and causes diabetes to be out of control. Cortisol is a very important hormone in our blood. It's both adrenaline and cortisol are secreted by the adrenal gland, which is a small gland above the kidney. We cannot live without, if we lose the two adrenals, we cannot live. So cortisol is very important for survival. But if we keep on increasing our cortisol level from stress, on the long run, it affects our immune system, may cause diseases. So that's important. Now, this is a complicated slide. You don't have to, I'm not going to quiz you on that at the end. But this is the autonomous nervous system. And the autonomous nervous system, as I said, is just autonomous. It's not under voluntary control. What's interesting here, we have two autonomous nervous system. The red one is a sympathetic nervous system, which increases the adrenaline, increases the cortisol in your body. And the blue one is the parasympathetic system, which has the opposite effects than the sympathetic system. And that's what we use and what we elicit when we do mindfulness and meditation. We put in action our parasympathetic system. And that's why it counteracts the effects of the sympathetic system. And as you can see, there are nerves, the sympathetic nerves and parasympathetic nerve come to every organ in our body. The eyes, the glands, the stomach, the kidney, the colon, every organ in our body has both sympathetic and parasympathetic system. So when you're stressed out, it affects every organ in your body. Sometimes we think, oh no, it only affects my heart or my mood. It's much more than that. It affects every organ in your body. So it's very important to be aware of that. And so when all those nerves come to each organ, that's called peripheral activation. Our metabolism is activated. The adrenaline, as we said, increases our blood pressure, breathing, increases the muscle tone because we have to get ready to fight. So that's the peripheral activation. And sometimes the stress does not come from outside, comes from the inside. Our attitude, our beliefs, our assumptions sometimes can cause us stress, from the inside. It could be from previous experiences. It could be from childhood trauma. It could be from different things. So all those are stress which are inside of us, and we need to become aware of it and then do something about it. So that's why emotional intelligence is developed with mindfulness, because we become more aware. It has a lot of factors. One of them is self-awareness, become aware of our emotions, of our actions, then learn how to manage our emotions and action, how to learn how to respond instead of reacting. Then learn how to motivate ourselves, be proactive, take actions, decide how do I want to show up in the world today. Do I want to show up with resentment or anger or anxiety, or do I want to show up with kindness and gentleness and an open heart and compassion? So we decide how we want to. And other factors of emotional intelligence are, understanding the emotions of others and know how to deal with them. EQ, which your emotional quotient, is more important in success in life than your IQ, because you know how to deal with people, you know how to communicate with people. So it is very, very important. So why is relaxation important? Because do you know, that's a difficult question, but do you know what is the hormone that is opposite, or it does create the opposite reaction than adrenaline from the parasympathetic system? Adrenaline is secreted by the sympathetic system. The parasympathetic system, when you relax, you take a deep breath, you focus on your breath, that's all what mindfulness and meditation is. Another hormone takes over. Anybody? I know it's not. So the mindfulness meditation reduces anxiety, reduces pain sometimes, improves health, enhances your immune system, and reduces neuroplasticity, which Dr. Frank is going to talk about in a few minutes. Neuroplasticity is how our brain responds to mindfulness and meditation in a positive way. So some health benefits of meditation are improved attention, stress reduction. When I experienced burnout, I did a lot of research on what we can do about burnout. And there was a lot of research from Mayo Clinic, was like 20,000 physicians, and they found out that mindfulness helps prevent burnout, helps improve well-being of physicians, because the burnout rate in physicians is more than 50%, and I'm sure after the COVID crisis is more like 70%. And it's the highest, than the regular population. Regular population is usually 30–40%. And when I learned the statistics, actually, I was surprised. I thought I was the only one experiencing burnout. But in fact, a lot of other people were experiencing burnout. And that's how I got into mindfulness, because I wanted to do something first to help myself, and then to be able to help other people. So acetylcholine is the hormones that I'm talking about. Acetylcholine slow your heart rate, slow your breathing. So when you automatically sit down and start breathing and relax, your parasympathetic system is activated, your acetylcholine increases, your oxytocin increases, and that's a bonding hormone. Women who are pregnant increase their oxytocin, and so they bond better, and women usually have higher oxytocin than men, of course. And then the serotonin is increased when you're relaxed, and it makes us feel good, and regulates our mood and social behavior. So I like this quote, every day brings a choice to practice stress or to practice peace. So it is a decision, between that stimulus and your response, there is a, fraction of a second. And in that fraction of a second depends how you live your life, how you decide how to live or how to react. So if you want to react and get angry, then it's your choice. But you have another choice, which is to respond. Stop, take a deep breath, assess the situation, and then decide how you want to respond according to your values, like George said, and also initiating actions, because sometimes you have a lot of plans in your head, but if you don't initiate actions and the discipline that he talked about, to continue doing what you're doing, to continue focusing on your open heart, to continue focusing on what you really want, instead of our monkey mind taking us wherever the monkey mind wants to. We want to be the master of our mind. The mind is a terrible master and a good servant. So we ourselves want to be the master of our mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. Any questions for Frank? Sorry, Assad. Any questions for Assad? Excellent, thanks so much. What I wanted to do is we've got a mindfulness exercise, and I'm going to facilitate a guided meditation in just a moment or so. The one thing that Camry had said is that we just want the break that's coming up after this discussion. So I want to do the meditation and not have to have a public service announcement about the coffee. So we have 2 stations outside for coffee. One's on the patio and one's on the porch. And what she just asked to do is that when you grab your coffee or your beverage, is just to move to another open space and just maintain that social distancing. We've got some water available, and then when you come back in, just make sure that you put your mask on. So we just protect ourselves and each other. Okay. So great discussion so far. Now we're going to come into the second part, a little bit of an exercise. So I'm going to facilitate a guided meditation. And for those folks that were in the men's group, they might remember this because this is the one that we opened up that discussion with. So for those guys in the men's group that haven't been doing this since we had it back in the fall, this is going to be a good reminder. So what I want to do is, it's a 15-minute guided meditation, and I'll just kind of walk you through what we want to talk about. So the first thing is that, and Lee, you probably can help, is that the intent of a yoga practice was not designed to, for the physicalness of it. It was really a precursor for you to set up your body for meditation or contemplation, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a kind of a express yoga. I'm just going to get you to stand and stretch and stuff like that just to get your body loose. And then we're going to go into a guided meditation. And what I'm going to start to do is just give you some ideas about breathing. And the thing I just want to make sure that everybody understands is that oftentimes people don't breathe correctly. So when you breathe diaphragmatically. So your stomach should technically be going out when you breathe and in when you exhale. And so when we do this exercise, just want to make sure that everybody is breathing correctly. So when we say inhale, it should be, and your tummy should go out, and when you say exhale, your tummy should go in, okay? So just try that in the exercise. And then what I want to be able to do is just to do 2 things. One is to relax your body, and the other is to relax your mind. So we're going to start with a warm plane of energy. We're going to start at the tip of your toes and move gently through your body. And what I would hope you to do is, as you move through your body, that visualization, that plane of energy can identify where you hold stress in every part of your body, in your shoulders, in your neck. So just use that warm plane of energy to continue to relax your body. And then we're going to take that same warm plane of energy, and we're going to have a column of white light coming from the heavens as a relaxing energy, right? So that's really kind of set up the relaxation of your body. And then what I want to do is I want to take that same concept, and this is really powerful because your conscious brain is only so smart. If you allow it to focus on a warm plane of energy moving from left to right and side to side and front to back, the focus of your brain is on that. It's not on the distracting thought. So what I'm trying to do is just to get you to relax your body, relax your mind, and then we'll just continue with the meditation, okay? Now, the thing that I want to share is for the years that I've been teaching meditation, one of the best techniques that I've discovered and used to get to that quiet, relaxing mindfulness state is to gently tap your right index finger, okay? And what generally happens is you start out and it's pretty mechanical, but what I want you to do is that through this exercise, just to think about, as you relax, that finger getting heavier and heavier and heavier. So what happens for me as a facilitator, I can look around the room and I can tell where people are really relaxing and where some people are not relaxing so much. And I can tell because they're still going right, okay? So, and I use this technique to this day. If I'm at night and I'm crazy thoughts, I just put my finger out and I tap my finger, and gently over time it starts to relax, okay? So that's the thing that I want to share with you. As we get through this guided meditation, I want you to use that technique. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to stretch, and then I'm going to put on some music. It's from a cut from Deuter. It's one of my favorite cuts. It's about a 10-minute guided meditation. So I'll put the music on as a little bit of backdrop, and then I'll facilitate this guided discussion. So are we ready? All right, why don't we stand up, perk up. All righty. And Lee, this is the precursor for the work that you're going to be doing coming up, right? Okay, so what I want to do is just want you to stretch your hands over your head, right, to the heavens. Okay, and if you can, just gently move out a little bit from your tables. That's it. So what I want you to do is just take that stretch and just bring it down and touch your ankles gently. Stretch your muscles out of your back. Right. Then gently come up. Out, arms outside to side, just easy windmill. That's it. Gently rise to tip your toes up to the heavens. Okay, now just gently close your eyes and take a deep breath. Okay, now quietly sit down. And we're going to start the meditation. So is anybody scared? Nervous? One minute here. All righty, here we go. So what I want you to do is start with just a gentle breath. And one of the breathing techniques to get to relaxation is to recognize that as you inhale and exhale, if you take a longer period of time to exhale, that sends a signal to your body that you're relaxing. So what I want you to do is gently take a breath, and on your intake, count to 3, and as you exhale, gently count to 5. So I'll start it, and then I'll let you just continue. Gently inhale, 2, 3, hold, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gently inhale, 2, 3, hold, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then just continue, relax, and then take a deep breath and find your natural breath and body rhythm. And gently feel your body sinking into your seat. The tension from your shoulders relaxing. Starting to feel comfortable. And what I'd like you to do is just gently visualize a warm plane of energy, starting at the tip of your toes and gently making its way through your body and gently out the crown of your head. What I'll do is I'll guide you the first time, and then I'll let you do it a couple more times, noticing where you hold stress or tension. Just let that plane of energy soak and settle to relax that. So here we go. Starting at the tip of your toes, gently moving up across your calves, through your knee, the bottom and the top, gently through the front of your thigh, through the top, and gently into your lower hips. Gently through your waist, and to the top of your lower part of your rib cage. Gently across your chest. And allow that energy to work and gently move through your heart. Across your upper chest. And gently through your shoulders. Feeling the stress, the tension, gently melt away. And through your neck, gently through your head, and out the crown of your head. Gently take a deep breath. Exhale. Take a couple moments just to repeat that at your leisure. Identifying those spots of tension. Excellent. Now what I want you to do is just take that same warm plane of energy. And now we're going to quiet the mind a little bit. Starting at the tip of your right ear, gently move that warm energy across your ear, gently across your face, and your nose, and your eyes, and gently to the left side of your head. Take a moment at your leisure to use that warm plane of energy just to settle your thoughts and allow it to be quiet. Now what I'd like you to do, now that your mind is quiet, is I'd like you to visualize the sunset. Wonderful bright colors shining over the landscape. The multitude of colors, the brilliance. And just to be in that moment with God. And slowly the sun sets and darkness comes. You're quiet, relaxed. And night has fallen. And you look up into the sky, beautiful galaxy of stars, connectedness to the universe. Now slowly and gently let those stars gently fade. And just be quiet, relaxed. Just stay there for a moment. Get at your leisure. Wiggle your toes. Stretch your legs. And slowly and gently, open your eyes. Is everybody okay? Excellent work. Be gentle. That score was just 10 minutes. So hopefully we've been able to bring you to that quiet space in just 10 minutes. People think that you got to spend hours in the morning or at night meditating. A simple 10-minute exercise at the beginning sets you up. So, thoughts, questions? Did you do pretty well? Time for a break. Thank you. Coffee's outside. We'll convene in 10 or 12 minutes. And any questions for any of us that have presented so far, feel free to step up and ask us.